Howdy folks and welcome back to the channel. I am already smiling while talking and preparing this video because this will be the very first episode of my English tutorial for Gary Grigsby's War in the East 2. I apologize if I do mistakes, if I repeat the same things twice, but I'm always improvising. I don't have a script in front of me. I'm just going really, I say whatever crosses my mind in this moment. So I decided to make this tutorial series because I did bring this game already on the channel, but I think some of you, if not many, and many of you, let's say, might have been confused, may have not understood of what I was doing, and one of you, or even two of you, asked me to do a tutorial for people who never played this game and maybe are interested in playing it. Because I know there are other tutorials online, but apparently you guys like the way I explain things, and this makes me really incredibly super happy. And therefore this will be the very first video of I don't know how many tutorial videos, and my idea would be to explain you guys things with let's say practical examples. I don't like to go through everything and just tell you blah blah blah, this means this means that. I would really like to explain you things with some practical examples, because I want to make sure that you guys understand the different options, the different things, and different aspects of this game. And in this video tutorial, I would like to cover, let's say, give a brief introduction of this game, and also cover all the aspects of the initial starting window. So, Gary Grigsby's War in the East 2 is an operational game mainly set on the Eastern Front. I would say operational because as the player you do not control aspects that you control, for instance, in Hearts of Iron 4, like research, like construction, like production, and like training and recruitment, laws, ministers, stuff like that. No. This is in this game you just focus exclusively on basically moving units on the map. And it's an operational game because it's focused mainly on the Eastern Front, but the game allows you to also play around with other theaters of the Second World War in Europe, mainly the let's say if you play as the Axis, you can play around with the Western Front, the Norwegian Front, the North African, the Italian, and the Balkan fronts. While if you play as the Soviet, you can control, you can play around with the Northern Front, the Transcaucasian Front, and the Far Eastern Front. To briefly explain you these buttons, I would like to start with the pick scenario. I'm not going to discuss these for now. I would like to start with these three first, because for these I would like to directly go into one of these scenarios, because especially here on the game options and preferences, there are a few things that I think require a map. And also, before going on, I mentioned the English tutorial. English because some of you guys, some Italians guys, asked me to do a tutorial in Italian about this, and I will do this. I will do the same video in Italian, and yeah, just to help the Italian community in let's say knowing and understanding better this game. Now, why I'm not doing, let's say, a video in English with Italian subtitles? Because I'm dumb, I don't know how to do it, and for me it's much better to improvise in two different videos, both in English and in Italian. I know this is kind of weird, but I prefer to do this approach. It will mean double the effort, but I'm really happy to do it, because you guys are supporting my channel, and I'm really happy to give you guys more content that you can enjoy. So let's start from this first button. If you left click on pick scenario, this is the window that will appear. This is not the original game. I did keep my custom made scenarios. On the forum, you will see this scenario that I have prepared, and I will keep updating this scenario as long as new patches will be released for this game. But basically, if you click on pick scenario, this is the list of scenarios, and if you left click on one of these scenarios, you will see now that this scenario, the selected scenario, will become green, and here you have a brief the description of this scenario. I forgot to mention that this is a turn-based game, so no real strategy like Hearts of Iron 4. And I think this is also one good thing, because by having this turn-based game, there is basically no lag, and that's also one reason of why I want to bring this game into my to my channel. And then when you have selected this scenario of interest, there are many available here. You can click here on load the selected scenario, and the game will give you this window. Enter folder name for the game saves. Now, if you click on this tick, the game will create a folder called 1941 campaign, and at the end of each turn, if you don't change the settings, the game will save the game into this folder. If you don't click this tick, if you click the X, the game will save all the save games at the end of each turn in the main directory, in the main folder. Now, let me just briefly pause the recording and let's come back to the main window. Okay, so if you want to load one of your previous save game, you can click on this button, and here you can see exactly some examples of what I just told you. Here you have different folders. If you start, let's say, the same scenario over and over and over again, the game will just add these numbers in brackets to indicate the different subfolders. And as I mentioned, if you do not select any folder, all the save games will be saved in the main folder called save. So that's pretty explanatory. This button here, the PBEM play by email, is selected if you want to play in a multiplayer game. And if you want to play a multiplayer game against other players, you can just select this PBEM. You click on the multiplayer, you can enter your name, select a password, and then you can just register for your account, and then you are basically free to go. Now, these two buttons, Axis Human and Soviet Human, these two buttons dictate which faction is controlled by the AI, or vice versa, which player controls which faction. By default, both factions are controlled by the players. If you want to play against the Axis AI, you can just click with the left mouse button on this button here, while vice versa, if you want to play against the Soviets, you can just set these here. Now, I have to mention one thing that really, let's say, caught my attention, and this is also one reason of why I'm really so looking forward to bring this game on the channel. One guy on the forum tried to launch a grand campaign by letting the AI fight against each other. So yeah, both factions were controlled by the AI, and what this guy found out is that the Axis AI advanced with, let's say, advanced by following precisely the let's say the routes of advance that were followed in real life by the German army. And it was really shocking to compare the front lines in this game with the front lines of the real life. And because the AI just really followed exactly what happened in real life. That was amazing. I was so excited to go through that thread in the forum, and probably the only, let's say, minus to that was that the Axis took Sevastopol already in November 1941, while if you are a bit into military history of Operation Barbarossa, you will know that Sevastopol only fell in early July 1942. And yeah, that's basically one more reason of why I really want to bring this game to the channel. Now let's select Axis as humans, and let's talk about the difficulty. You guys have been watching me playing the game on the impossible difficulty. Now there are 5 levels of difficulty. By default, there is the game is set on normal, but if you left click, you can set the game to challenging, hard, impossible, or easy. What all these difficulty levels do, I'm gonna explain to you this in the game options. But before going into the game options, let's just randomly pick one scenario, the 1941 campaign. We are playing as the humans, so let's quickly load it. I will not play this, so I will just say do not create any folder for the save games. And yeah, so here we are. Do not worry, I will talk about the turn summary in the appropriate video. And let's now talk about the game options. So this is exactly the very same window that will appear if you click on the button Game Options in the main screen. Now, as I mentioned, by default, the computer controlled is not ticked here. Here you cannot, of course, when you are in the game, you cannot change this. But before starting the game, you can equally click here to set which faction will be controlled by the AI. Now, the second option is the famous fog of war. If you guys are new to this type of games, the fog of war is basically the option that allows you to see all the units of the enemy. Now, you see that both boxes are not ticked, which means that as the German, I can see, as you can see here, the position of all the Soviet units. Now, what happens if I add the fog of war option is that, you see, like I know here there is a unit, here that now I don't see it anymore. And also you see that now the enemy divisions do have, let's say, display less information. On some of them we can see the NATO symbols and these 2 numbers. On other units we can see the NATO symbol, but either a question mark or 2 numbers with a question mark, or in other cases we just see the unit. We don't know which type of unit is this. And no worries, I will go through this in a moment. Now, the movement fog of war is something related to the ability of the units to move into the enemy territory. Let me show you this with a quick example. Okay, we are back, and let's talk about the movement fog of war. Now, let's select, for instance, the 10th Motorized Division. Now, if I select the 10th Motorized Division, you see that I could ideally move this unit within these light hexes. This is of course, these are my hexes, these are the Soviet controlled hexes, and if I click here, I can move this unit around. I am playing now without the movement fog of war, and this option allows me to directly see which hexes do not contain enemy units. Like, yeah, exactly, because I could, if I select any unit, any motorized unit, I can just place my cursor here, and the unit will I can see already where which is the maximum range at which this unit can move. Now, if I do the same now with the movement Fog of War, look what happened. Now I can only see that I can move this unit here, but then I don't know if here there is an enemy unit, or I could just keep pushing forward with my 10th motorized division. And now you see the big limitation of this. This will force you to move any unit with very small clicks, with very small progresses, because you don't know if the enemy has some units here and there. So by playing with movement Fog of War, your game will be much slower, because it's yeah, for every unit you need to manually move them one hex at a time. But of course, this is, I would say, also a little bit more of a realistic. Of course, if you play as the Soviet, you have to check these two boxes to make sure you play with Fog of War and with movement Fog of War. Of course, if you play with movement Fog of War, you have to play with Fog of War, because if you, let's say, deselect this, you will automatically deselect the movement Fog of War. And if you select the movement Fog of War, you will also have to play with the Fog of War. Now, this lock HQ support, what does it mean? Gary Grigsby's War in the East 2 depicts not only the units at a divisional and regimental levels, but also has units which are represented at the battalion level, like engineers, flamethrower companies, artillery battalions, and all this kind of stuff. The option of locking HQ support means that if you select it throughout the game, if you select an HQ, like for instance the 2nd Panzer Group, all these, like the artillery, the anti-aircraft, and the machine gun, these are support units. They will remain attached to this HQ. I know this may not be easy to grasp, but there is an option to say, okay, I don't want any support units attached to my HQs. And this strategy can be doable, because if you want to micromanage the support units at every level, what I highly recommend you to do is to select, to make sure that at the end of the first turn, all of the support units will be moved to the OKH, so the Supreme Headquarters, and then from there you can literally pull them down and attach them to a specific subordinated HQ. I personally like this approach, because some HQs do not have, exactly like the 55th Army Corps, does not have any support unit attached, while I don't know, for instance, let's pick this is the 38th. Oh, this one as well doesn't have any support unit. My bad, I picked the wrong HQ. But yeah, okay, so as you can see, the 26th Army Corps does have a bunch of support units. And for the Grand Campaign, I am a huge fan of kind of redistributing the support units across the entire chain of command. So if you play with this lock HQ support, the support units will remain static within each HQ, and you will have to manually reassign them. Because this is quite time consuming, I usually play without this option, and then I will let the AI do the shuffling around for me. Now, automate AI air assist. This is an option that can be set regardless of the game. If you play multiplayer, I don't think this can be checked, but I may be wrong. But what this allows you to do is to let the AI take care of the air war. I will make videos dedicated to this, but take this for granted that if you click this, the AI will create automatically air doctrines will automatically perform air missions and will help you with the ground support in your land battles. Now, this option is recommended if you're starting to play the game if you're playing the game for the first time, because it can be really overwhelming to manually check and set the air doctrines, even though I highly recommend for you guys to learn the manual handling of the air war, because the AI does have one big problem. The AI will keep flying missions as long as there are planes that can be used for that mission. And of course, the more missions you fly with the same unit, the higher the losses will be, and higher losses means less pilots that are available, lower experience, and so on and so forth. Enhanced player TB control. TB indicates the theater boxes, and the theater boxes are represented here in this bottom left corner. As I mentioned before, when you play as Germany, you have control of the Western Europe, Norway, Finland, I forgot it, the Axis Reserve, the Soviet Union garrison, the North African, the Italian, and the Balkans theater box. If you play as the Soviets, you will have only the Northern Front, so the Finnish theater box. You will have control of the Transcaucasian front, so this region here. You will also have access to the reserve, to the partisan box, which is the opposite of the garrison box, and as well as the far eastern box. Now, enhanced player theater box control means that the player can manually pick any unit that is present here and can send this unit to the map, actually either to the reserves or to the map. By playing without this option, this is, I would say, the most realistic way, because the game simulates the transferring of units, and units mean not only divisions but as well support units, from let's say to Western France into Russia or on the map, and vice versa, the moving of units from the Eastern Front to, I don't know, the Italian front, to North Africa, to Norway, and so on and so forth. I am honestly a big fan of controlling my theater boxes, because yeah, I just prefer to keep a manual control of which units will be sent to the Eastern Front and which units can be sent instead to the reserves. And here we come now to the general difficulty levels. Now, by default, the game is set on normal, and as you can see, both sides do not gain any advantage into these 5 options. Briefly, morale level can actually be quite confusing, because morale not only means the morale of the troops, but it means, let's say, the combat effectiveness, the combat efficiency of your troops. The higher this number is, and the better your troops will fight in battle. And of course, if you play against the AI and you do have a bit of experience, it's highly recommended to give the AI some, let's say, some extra points in terms of morale. And I can maybe already mention this now. If the morale level of the AI is set at 110, the AI will gain a kind of cheat that allows it to move all of its units within its friendly controlled hexes virtually anywhere. So the AI could ideally, let me just briefly mention this with one practical example. Let's say if the AI has a unit in this hex, by setting the morale to 110, the AI could teleport this unit from this hex, let's say, to Kiev, for instance. Yeah. And above 120, the AI will also gain some significant bonuses in combat. No need to explain this now. Maybe I will talk about it in a future video. Now, the fourth build level. This number impacts, let's say, a kind of modifier that affects the speed at which fortifications are built. And again, more of this in the videos about fortifications. The logistics level. This is also quite important one, because this also affects the overall calculations that are made by the computer during the logistics phase. And if this number is above 100, you will have plenty of bonuses. If it's below 100, things are going to get tough. And yeah, believe me, when playing on the impossible difficulty, it's getting really tough. The transport and admin level, these are actually not modifiers, but indicate the percentage of in this case transport capacity, and in this case of administrative points gained during each turn. If you set it to 120, you will gain 120 points instead of 100 points of admin levels. And the transport level, if it's set above 100, it will just multiply by this number the so-called transport capacity of your nation. And again, more of this when I will talk about logistics and when I will talk about administrative points. Howdy folks, and welcome back. So I'm sorry that I am recording this section after having recorded the video, but I realized that I forgot one important thing that you guys may have been wondering about, and this is the different difficulty levels. How much do they affect the different modifiers? So it's very easy. I mentioned before that normal means 100 for everything and for everyone. Now if we go through the difficulty, if we increase the difficulty by leaving, let's say, the Soviets as the AI controlled, we see now that, okay, the player loses 10 points in fort, logistics, transport and admin, and the AI gains everything of 10 points, 10 points higher in everything. Challenging, hard, the player loses 20 points in fort, logistics, transport and admin, but still nothing in the morale, while the AI now gets massive bonuses to morale, force and everything. And if we now go to the impossible difficulty, now this explains why the game becomes really impossible, because not only the player will get let's say a malus in the morale and this 30 points less in everything else. Now yeah, besides this, the AI now will gain 50 more points in everything. And believe me guys, this difference is gonna make a tremendously high impact on combat and many other things. Of course, if we go on easy, the situation is reversed, meaning that the player will gain more points and the AI will lose some morale and it will suffer from some maluses. Now if we set instead both factions as controlled by the players, you see that now the modifiers are basically the same for both factions. And if we now set both factions set to the AI, you see that again both will gain the same bonuses. That's it for now. I will leave you now to the rest of the video. And this now concludes the game options, and it's now time to talk about last button, that is the preference screen. Now this is not set to default, because in default the music, sound effects and mouse click volume are set to 10, but I tried already and it's just way too loud for me, so I decided to bring everything to level 3. And also, if you start from here, in default mode, the game is set to be launched in windowed mode. I honestly prefer to play in full screen mode, but that's just my way of playing it. The graphic quality, it's again quite intuitive, because if you have a sluggish computer, you can just select the low quality option, but at least with this laptop, I have no problems in playing with the high quality settings. The scroll speed indicates the speed, let's say at which speed you can move your mouse around the map. By default is set on 4. Let's say, just to give you an example, if we set it on 1, exactly, now it's getting super fast, as you can see. This indicates the delay at which you can move around the map. And if we set it on, let's say, 9, now things will be extremely slow. I personally like to have it set it on 4, just because it's, let's say, in between the crazy fast and the extra slow. The message delay indicates the time that any pop-up message will be displayed on the game screen. So 2 means that a message will be displayed for 2 seconds, and then it will disappear. The hex pop-up delay indicates instead the delay that you have to wait to get the hex information when you hover the mouse on it. Now, I will talk about it maybe in the next video, but if you hover the mouse on top of an X, you see that this window appears with several information. The higher the delay is, the longer you have to wait before this window appears. The mouse over delay is basically the same thing, related in this case to units. Yeah, sorry about this. Yeah, so as you can see, if I move my hex on top of an X, if I move the cursor on top of an X containing units, now I also have this window here in the lower part of the screen that contains some additional informations. And by changing the options here, you can affect the delay at which the hex or any other information box is displayed on the map. Now, the combat resolution message level. This indicates basically the amount of information that is displayed at the end of every combat. If you set it on 1, you will basically see just who won, who lost, and that's it. If you set it, I think, to 7, you will see an incredible amount of information, like, I don't know, the infantry squad of the 91st Infantry Division is attacking the infantry squad of the 125th Infantry Division, is firing, and it's really getting complicated. And I would highly recommend you guys to play with either the lowest or even the level 2 or 3, just to get an overview of what's going on in the battle. But do not play with 7 unless you're really passionate about every single element of the division taking part in the combat, because otherwise you will just, I think, waste 1 hour in just looking your troops attacking Brest-Litovsk, let's say. The combat resolution message delay indicates the delay in seconds before basically the next combat resolution message will appear. Like if you're playing against the AI and the AI attacks you in multiple hexes, you will see the combat resolution message appearing for 1 second, and then let's say for one attack, and then for the next attack you will see you will have to wait 1 second, then you will be able to see the message of the next attack. While the combat resolution close delay indicates the amount of time that the combat resolution message will remain visible and open on the screen. And here you have the air execution phase detail. Basically, I will talk about this maybe in the next video, but the game is divided into 4 phases, and one of these phases is the air execution phase. During the air execution phase, you can set here which amount of information you want to see, and this kind of resembles the combat resolution message level. So on high, you will get a ton of information. On low, you will just get some minimal information about how many planes, how many losses, and so on and so forth. Show videos is the option that allows you to visualize the introduction video each time you launch the game, and this option, export battle details comma separated values, allows you to save in an Excel file all the details of your battles. I personally don't use this option, and this show videos is really optional to you guys. Autosave game, I think this is very important to leave it ticked, because the game will automatically make a save at the end of your turn. And here you also have the option of the pre-logistics autosave. I personally do not use this. The pre-logistics means that before the logistics phase, the game will make a save. I don't use it because it's just, I think, a waste of memory on your hard disk. Now, the starting zoom level, that's, I think, one thing that I can show you with a practical example. Basically, it indicates which of the 5 zoom levels. Let's say when you start a new game, this will set the zoom level that you will see on the map when the game is loaded. Basically, there are 5 zoom levels. This is the max in, this is the in, medium, I don't know the other one, I think it should be out, and this is the max out. And as you can see, each zoom levels also allows the displaying of specific information of units on the map. But again, more of this in the next episodes. Show move animation. The move animation is basically this one. If you select a unit and you want to move it, let's say the Großdeutschland motorized regiment from its position here to Grojec, the animation is basically this one. If you select without animation, the unit will be automatically teleported here. Animation speed, it's quite obvious. It indicates the speed at which the unit will move on the map. Music volume, sound effects volume, mouse click volumes are again quite self-explanatory. No need to cover this. The auto show turn summary basically allows you to see that very interesting windows, that is this one, each time you start a turn, and I personally like to keep it selected. The show depot warning message is a window that will appear when you, let's say, when you are about, I think we could do it exactly so, end turn without AI depot management, and let's say no, and the display scaling percentage I think this is related to the size of the windows. I don't know about this too much because it was not present in the base game. This option was added later on, so I don't really know what is this. If you guys know it, just please, as always, let me know in the comments below. And here now we talk about briefly about the map preferences, and for this I really need this map over here. Now, show jump map. The show jump map is basically this one here, a very tiny map on the bottom left corner. Oops, sorry. That if you do not, exactly, you see that the map is now disappeared and you only have access to the theater boxes. In the map, your units are shown as black dots, while the enemy units that you can see are indicated as red dots. Now, show ground element aircraft icons. This is the information box that appears when you hover the mouse on an X that contains units. In this case, you see that these two infantry divisions do have a total of, let's say, 2 armored cars, 52 infantry guns, 692 infantry weapons, 72 engineers, and so on and so forth. While if you hover it over an air base, indicated here by this green dot, you see that there are, for instance, 10 support units, 15 light flak, 115 BF-109 Friedrich II, and 4 flak units. If you just deselect this, you will not see this window anymore. Show army front colors. Now, this is very useful to get an idea of which unit belongs to which army. Now, unlike Hearts of Iron 4, Gary Grigsby's War in the East 2 reminds me a little bit of Hearts of Iron 3, in which you have, finally, thank God, you have the chain of command. So you have, let's say, for the Axis, you have the Supreme HQ, then you have the army groups, you have the armies, exactly, the army groups, the armies, and the army corps, and then of course the division. Now you see that some units are colored, let's say, in light green, this pinkish part. It's not, this is purple. That I don't know how it's called in English, and this indicates which units belong to which army. Like the second Panzer group has this light blue color, so every unit with this light blue color belongs to the second Panzer group. Now, if I deselect this, every unit will basically look like the same, and I personally do not really like it. I'm not color blinded, but if you are color blind, you can play it without. But I like to have some extra colors, let's say, on the map. Move path, that's also quite interesting. The move path, let's select the 10th motorized division. Now, if I select this division, and let's also maybe play without fog of war. So these hexes here, and as well as these here, are the hexes that through which the unit can move into. Now, you see this kind of this compass with 4 arrows and a number inside. This is the movement path that the unit will follow if I give the order to move, let's say, to Lockwitz. Yeah, no, Lowicz, I think it's called in Polish. Yeah, and if I deselect this one, you see that now I don't see anything. I don't see the path across which hexes the unit will move. I highly recommend you guys to keep this selected, because When I will talk about the terrain and the movement, you want to avoid, for instance, moving motorized units across swampy terrain. Allowed movement. Now, if you select again the, let's say, the 137 Infantry Division, you see that there are some hexes that are, let's say, light, and other hexes which are blackened or darkened, I would say. These lightened hexes indicate the maximum range at which the unit could go. This is basically the allowed movement, because beyond this border the unit cannot go. If you deselect this, you will not see this option anymore. Again, I highly recommend you guys to play with this on. Counter drop shadow. It's basically this kind of tiny shadow here. It's not really it doesn't really affect the game. I just like it because it gives me a kind of three-dimensional sense of my units. Non-NATO unit symbols. Now, coming from Hearts of Iron 3 and Hearts of Iron 4, I personally like to play with NATO symbols. You can find them online, but very briefly, a square with an X indicates the infantry, a square with an X and two dots indicates the motorized infantry, and a square with this symbol here indicates tanks. And I think that's, oh yeah, I mean SEC, SEC means the security units, and I think that's really all. I mean, there are also these where are they? These units, these are the fortified units, but besides this, I think that's all. If you do not feel confident, you can also play with okay, you must exit the game, but basically this option will replace the NATO symbols with like more drawings that mimic, let's say, a group of soldiers, a panzer, a soldier next to a truck, and so on and so forth. And oh, I forgot, this indicates the mechanized infantry as NATO symbols. Now, unit values display type. You see that these units do have two types. They do have numbers here below. If you select numeral, you will see these two numbers. If you select name, you will see an abbreviation of the unit. Like in this case, this is the 25th Motorized Division, this is the 267th Infantry Division, and so on and so forth. I personally like to see the numeral because by selecting the numeral, you can now select which type of information you can display below the cursor. And this CV, move, and combat are the other two options. Now, CV move indicates that the first number is the so-called combat value, while the other number indicates the movement points that are left within this unit. Now, this is, let's say, by default, indicating here for your units. For the enemy units, these two numbers indicate the attacking value and the defensive value of that specific unit. While if you click on combat, then you see that your units change, because now the first value will be the combat value of the attack, while the second one will be the value that this unit has in the defense. Again, I will talk about more of this when I will cover the combat and combat values and all this kind of juicy stuff. I like to set them with CV and move, just because I want to see how many movement points my motorized and tank divisions do have. If you have a stack of units, like in this case, you see here we have actually, okay, here we have one infantry division and one tank division. Tank and motorized divisions do have a maximum movement points of 50, while infantry divisions do have a maximum movement point of 16. 50 and 16. And if you have a stack of units, you will always see the highest number. I mean, in the movement points, you will see always the movement points of the unit which has the highest number of movement points. I'm sorry about this, I hope you guys got the take-home message. While the combat value is basically the sum of the 2 or 3 combat values of the units present here. If this number goes above 99, you will basically see an X here. And we're almost done. Hex pop-up location can be changed here. I honestly never touched it, so let's just use -1, and this indicates basically where your cursor needs to be in order to have to let the pop-up window message appear and show river rail info. It's good if, let's say, you have an X like this one. You see that now without this option we don't have information about this Pilica river, while if we select this, now it will say that exactly there is a minor river east, southeast and southwest of this hex. And okay folks, I think this is everything. That's all what I had to say. Credits are all the lovely people that contributed to this game, and editor allows you to play around with either these scenarios or the generic data. If you want to change any generic data, you have to click here, then you select which file you want to modify. Let's say leaders, and then once this is selected, you go on to the respective tab and you can play around with all of your commanders. I think that's all for this first tutorial. Expect the Italian tutorial to come up soon, and until then guys, as always, thank you very much for supporting the channel. Thank you very much for everything. Please let me know if I missed something, if I have to change something, if I need to modify a few things. Let me know. This is my very first tutorial. I don't know if you guys liked it, but I hope so you did. And yeah, as always, be safe, take care, and see you guys again in the next episode.